I've always hated carnivals. Not in the "I don't like crowds" kind of way. I mean the deep, gut-level kind of hate you can't explain without sounding crazy. The kind that sits behind your ribs and tightens when you hear distant laughter, when you smell popcorn and hot oil, when you see faded lights blinking in the dark like someone trying to signal for help. But back then, I didn't know why. I was 19, working late shifts at a grocery store, saving up for a used car. My friend Mason kept begging me to go with him to the traveling carnival that had set up outside our town for the weekend. "Come on," he said, leaning against my locker after work, chewing gum like he was bored with life. "It's the last weekend before they pack up. You've been depressed all summer." "I'm not depressed," I told him. "You're the human version of a rainy day," he said. "Just come. 10 minutes. We'll get funnel cake, laugh at the clowns, and go home." I should have said no. But I'd been stuck in the same routine for months. Work. Sleep. Repeat. The idea of walking under bright lights and hearing music felt normal. Like maybe I could borrow a little happiness from it. So I agreed. We went Friday night, right after my shift. The sun was already down. The air had that late summer heaviness, warm and sticky. As soon as we pulled into the dirt lot, the carnival lights spilled across the windshield, reds and blues and sickly yellows flashing in patterns that made my eyes ache. The place was busier than I expected. Parents holding kids' hands. Teenagers in packs, daring each other to ride things that looked like they were built from spare parts. The smell hit me first: fried dough, stale cotton candy, and something sour underneath it all, like damp wood. Mason clapped his hands like a little kid. "This is perfect." I wasn't smiling. I told myself it was just because I was tired. We walked past the rides. The Ferris wheel creaked with each turn, metal grinding in a way that made it sound like it was complaining. The carousel music warbled like a dying cassette tape. The first weird thing happened near the entrance. A man stood by a ticket booth, staring at the crowd. He wasn't selling anything. Just standing there. He was tall and thin, wearing a dark coat even though it wasn't cold. His face was pale under the lights, and his eyes looked wrong. Like they weren't focused on anything in front of him, but on something behind it. When we walked past, I glanced at him. He glanced back. And I swear to you, his mouth moved, like he was saying something, but I couldn't hear it over the music. I kept walking, pretending I didn't notice. But a cold line ran down my spine, like someone had poured ice water inside me. Mason didn't seem to care. He dragged me toward the games. We did the usual stuff. Ring toss. The balloon darts. A basketball hoop that was obviously bent to make it harder to win. Mason laughed the whole time. I tried to relax. I tried to tell myself I was overthinking everything. Then we reached the prize booths. There were dozens of them, lined up like a colorful wall of stuffed animals. Big teddy bears hanging from the top. Cheap plush sharks and cartoon characters dangling by strings. But one booth stood out. It wasn't brighter. It wasn't bigger. It was actually dimmer than the others. Like the bulbs above it were weaker. And the stuffed animals looked older. Not ripped, exactly, but faded, like they'd been left in sunlight for too long. Above the booth was a sign, hand-painted in sloppy red letters. "Try your luck, everyone wins." A woman stood behind the counter. She looked middle-aged, maybe late 40s. Hair pulled back tight. Smile too wide, too still. Mason nudged me. "Dude! Everyone wins!" Yeah, I said, not taking my eyes off her. That's never true. Let's find out. He slapped a few tickets on the counter. The woman didn't blink. She didn't even look down at the tickets. Her eyes stayed on Mason's face like she was memorizing him. Pick a game, she said. Her voice was calm, but it had this weird softness to it, like she was speaking in a room with carpets and curtains, even though we were outside in a noisy carnival. Mason pointed at a game I hadn't seen before. It looked like a simple pegboard with holes, and you had to roll a ball into one of them. Each hole had a number painted inside. Easy, Mason said. He rolled the ball. It bounced once, twice, then dropped into a hole marked 13. The woman's smile grew a fraction wider. Oh, she said. Lucky. Mason laughed. So what do I win? She leaned down and reached under the counter. When she stood back up, she was holding a plush bear. It was about the size of a small dog, gray fur, button eyes. But the weird part was, it wasn't smiling. Most carnival plush toys have some cute face. This bear's mouth was stitched into a straight line. Like it wasn't happy. Like it was trying not to show something. The woman slid it across the counter. Here, she said. Take care of him. Mason picked it up. This thing's creepy. He squeezed it and laughed again. Then the bear made a sound. Not a squeak. Not the normal stuffed animal noise. It sounded like a breath. A tiny, shallow inhale. Mason froze, still holding it. I felt the hairs on my arms rise. Did you hear that? I asked. Mason stared at the bear. Then he forced a laugh. It's probably one of those noise things. He squeezed it again. The bear didn't squeak. It breathed again, slow and tired, like it was asleep. Mason let go of it like it was hot. The woman behind the counter watched us like she was enjoying our reaction. It's fine, she said. It just wants a home. I should have walked away right then. But Mason, being Mason, got competitive. I want another one, he said. Let me roll again. The woman's eyes flicked to me for the first time. You, she said softly. You don't want to play? I shook my head. No thanks. Her smile twitched. Everyone wins. Not me, I said, trying to sound casual. She stared at me for a beat longer than normal, then turned back to Mason. He rolled again. The ball bounced, and again dropped into 13. Mason's smile faded. Okay, that's weird. The woman didn't react like it was strange. She leaned down and brought out another plush. This one was a rabbit. Same faded fur. Same dead button eyes. Same straight stitched mouth. She placed it gently on the counter, like it mattered. Take care of her too, she said. Mason backed away. Nope. I'm good. He grabbed the bear anyway, holding it like you'd hold something you didn't want to touch too much. We're leaving, he muttered. As we walked away, I looked back. The woman was still smiling. Still watching. But now her lips were moving again. And even over the noise, I caught one word. Soon. We tried to forget about it. We ate funnel cake. We walked through the crowd. Mason loosened up again, but he kept the bear tucked under his arm like he didn't want it near his chest. Around 10 we left. The drive back was quiet. The bear sat in the back seat, slumped like a passenger who'd fallen asleep. When Mason dropped me off, I leaned into the car and said, "Throw that thing out." Mason rolled his eyes. It's a free bear. It breathed, Mason. It's a gimmick, he said. Probably has a sensor in it. Then why did she talk like that? He shrugged. She's a carnival worker. They're all weird. I watched his taillights fade down the street, and I remember this sudden fear, not for myself, but for him. Like the night had handed him something and it didn't want it back. I went inside and tried to sleep. But around 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was Mason. I answered groggy. What? His voice was shaky. It's doing it again. What's doing what? The bear, he whispered. It's breathing. I sat up. Mason, throw it out. I tried, he said. I put it in the trash. I swear I did. And then I heard something in my room, and it was back on my chair. Just sitting there. Cold crept through my stomach. Stop playing. I'm not, he said, voice cracking. I heard it move. There was a soft sound on his end of the call, like fabric dragging on carpet. Mason inhaled sharply. What was that? I said. He whispered. It's not on the chair anymore. My throat went dry. Mason? He didn't answer. Instead, I heard a sound I still can't forget. A small, slow inhale. Right into his phone. Like someone breathing close to the microphone. Then Mason screamed. The call cut. I tried to call back, straight to voicemail. I threw on clothes and sprinted to my car. His house was only 8 minutes away, but it felt longer. Every red light felt like it was holding me back on purpose. When I got there, his porch light was on. His front door was cracked open. I pushed it wider and called his name. No answer. The house was silent, except for the faint hum of the fridge and the ticking of a wall clock. I stepped inside, heart pounding. Mason? I called again. Still nothing. Then I heard it. A soft, rhythmic sound from upstairs. Not footsteps. Not creaking floorboards. Breathing. Slow. Even. Like someone sleeping. I climbed the stairs with my keys clenched between my fingers like a weapon. Mason's bedroom door was open. The light was on. And Mason was sitting on the edge of his bed, perfectly still, facing the wall. His shoulders were tense. His hands rested on his knees. I stepped in. Mason. He didn't turn. I took another step. Mason, look at me. His head moved slightly, like he was trying. Then, in a voice that wasn't his, he said, Everyone wins. I froze. His body trembled, like something inside him was pulling on his nerves. I whispered, Mason, what's going on? Slowly, too slowly, his head turned toward me. His eyes were wide open, but they looked empty. Like he wasn't behind them. And sitting beside him on the bed was the bear. Upright. Staring at me. I swear its button eyes looked shinier than before, like they'd been polished. The bear's mouth was still a straight line. But Mason's mouth wasn't. Mason's lips were pulled into a smile so wide it looked painful. He spoke again, that wrong voice coming out of him. Take care of him. My legs wanted to run, but my brain didn't know what it was seeing. My whole body felt trapped in that doorway. The bear shifted. Just a little. And I realized the breathing sound wasn't coming from Mason. It was coming from the bear. I backed up, hitting the doorframe. Mason stood up, stiff like a puppet. His head tilted slightly, like he was listening. Then he whispered, this time, in his real voice, faint and terrified. "Don't let it touch you!" My heart stopped. "Mason!" He lunged forward. Not at me. At the bear. He grabbed it with both hands and slammed it against the wall. The bear's head snapped sideways. And something inside it cracked. Not plastic. Not stuffing. It sounded like bone. Mason screamed again and threw it to the floor. He stomped on it, over and over, like he was trying to kill it. The bear didn't squeak. It didn't rip. It just thudded under his feet, heavy and wrong. Then Mason fell backward, gasping like he'd been underwater. I ran to him. "Mason!" He grabbed my wrist with a grip so tight it hurt. His eyes finally looked like his. He whispered, "It's not a toy." I looked at the bear on the floor. It was dented. Twisted. But not torn. And the breathing had stopped. For a moment, everything was still. Then the bear's head slowly turned. Not falling. Turning. Like something inside was rotating it. It faced me again. And the stitched mouth began to curve upward. A smile. Not cute. Not friendly. A smile that looked like it was learning how. Mason saw it too. He let out this broken sound and scrambled away from it. I grabbed him under the arms and dragged him out of the room. We ran downstairs and out the front door like the house was on fire. We didn't stop until we were in my car with the doors locked. Mason was shaking so hard his teeth clicked. "What do we do?" he whispered. I stared at his upstairs window. "We burn it." We drove to an empty lot outside town where people used to dump old furniture. Mason's hands were trembling as he carried the bear like it weighed 50 pounds. We doused it in lighter fluid. Mason flicked the lighter. The flame caught. And for a second I thought it wasn't going to burn, like the fire was afraid of it. Then it ignited. The fur shriveled and blackened. The smell was awful, like burning hair and rotting meat. Mason gagged. As the bear burned, the stitched smile melted away. And I heard something. Not from the bear. From inside the fire. A faint, tiny voice. Like a child, whispering. "Help me!" Mason staggered back, eyes wide. "Did you hear?" The bear collapsed in on itself, and the voice stopped. We stood there until it was ash. Then we left. The next day, we went back to the carnival. We wanted answers. We wanted to see that booth. That woman. But the carnival was gone. Not packing up. Gone. The whole dirt lot was empty, like nothing had ever been there. No tire tracks. No trash. No flattened grass. Just clean, untouched ground. Mason looked like he was going to cry. We drove around town, asking people if they remembered the carnival from last night. Some did. But when we asked where it was, they all said the same thing. "What carnival?" And when we insisted, they looked at us like we were trying to pull a prank. Mason stopped talking about it after that. He tried to move on. But a week later, he came into work pale and exhausted. He pulled me aside and showed me something on his phone. A picture. It was the prize booth. But it wasn't taken by either of us. It looked like it was taken from inside the booth, facing outward, like someone standing behind the counter. In the foreground, you could see a row of stuffed animals. Faded. Button eyes. Straight stitched mouths. And behind the counter glass, reflected faintly, was a face. Mason's face. But his eyes were empty. and his mouth was stretched into that same too-wide smile. Under the photo was a message from an unknown number. One line. Everyone wins, Mason. Soon. I need to start by saying something that still makes my hands shake when I admit it. I saw my own death. Not in a dream. Not in a feeling. I saw it like you see a video on your phone. Clear enough that it stuck. Detailed enough that I can't pretend it didn't happen. And it started in a fun house. This was 2 years ago. I was 23. My younger sister, Talia, had just turned 16, and she begged me to take her and her friends to a carnival that came through our county every fall. I didn't want to. I hate carnivals now. But back then, I told myself I was being paranoid. So I drove them. 4 teenagers crammed into my car, blasting music, laughing like the world couldn't touch them. The carnival was set up in the same kind of place as all the others, a big empty lot outside town. Lights, rides, smells, noise. It was almost comforting, in a gross way, like a childhood memory you don't trust. I paid for their wristbands and told them the rules: stay together, don't talk to strangers, and if anything feels off, call me. They rolled their eyes and promised. For the first hour, it was normal. They rode rides, took photos, screamed and laughed. I followed behind like an exhausted babysitter. Then Talia pointed at the funhouse. It looked like a giant clown face, the entrance being its open mouth. The paint was chipped. The eyes were faded. Under the lights, it somehow looked even worse. Please, Talia begged. Just this one. I hated that thing instantly. It gave me a bad feeling I couldn't name. But I didn't want to be the boring older sibling. So I agreed. We lined up with other people. The funhouse worker stood at the entrance, a guy in a striped shirt with greasy hair and a bored face. He stamped our hands without looking at us. When we stepped into the clown's mouth, the air changed. Outside, it was warm. Inside, it was cold and damp, like a basement. The smell of mildew hit me, and I remember thinking, how is this allowed? The first room was a hallway of mirrors. Normal funhouse stuff. The girls laughed at their distorted reflections. But I noticed something. My reflection didn't distort the same way. The mirror stretched my face longer than it should have, then snapped back. Like it was trying on different versions of me. I blinked hard and looked away. We moved through swinging foam doors, a spinning tunnel, a floor that tilted under your feet. The girls loved it. Then we reached a room with a single mirror at the end. Not a wall of mirrors. Just one. It was taller than me, framed in tarnished gold. It looked old, like it belonged in someone's house, not a carnival. Talia's friend giggled. This one makes you skinny. But when we stepped closer, the mirror didn't show us the way a funhouse mirror should. It showed us normal. Too normal. The lighting in the mirror was different too. Softer. Darker. Like we were standing somewhere else. Talia waved at her reflection. Her reflection waved back. A beat too late. I felt my stomach drop. I stepped closer and stared at myself. In the mirror, my face looked tired. My eyes looked darker. Like I hadn't slept in days. But the real me. I had slept fine. I leaned in. And then I saw it. Behind my reflection in the mirror world, someone stood in the shadows. Tall. Thin. Just a shape. But I could feel it watching me through the glass. I spun around. Nothing behind us but the funhouse hallway. I faced the mirror again, heart thumping. The shadow was still there. Then my reflection smiled. I wasn't smiling. My reflection's mouth pulled wide, slow, like it was stretching muscles it didn't usually use. My real face stayed still. I whispered, "Talia, step away." She rolled her eyes. "You're being weird." Then her reflection turned its head and looked at me. Not at Talia. At me. Like it knew I was the one noticing. Talia laughed, but it sounded nervous now. Okay, let's go." We backed away from the mirror. And the moment we did, the mirror changed. It wasn't us anymore. It was me. Alone. In a place I didn't recognize. A dark room with peeling wallpaper. A single hanging bulb. A smell I could almost imagine, metal and old water. My reflection, older, paler, was tied to a chair. My wrists were bound with something dark, maybe rope, maybe something else. My mouth was gagged. And behind me stood that same tall shape, holding something long and shiny. A knife. I stood frozen, unable to breathe. The reflection me struggled, eyes wide with panic, and the figure leaned down like it was whispering in my ear. Then the reflection me looked straight into the mirror. Straight into me. And tears rolled down his face. I jerked back like I'd been burned. The girls screamed. Talia grabbed my arm. "What the hell was that?" I couldn't speak. My throat felt glued shut. The mirror flickered. For a split second, I saw the gold frame filled with something else, like the glass wasn't reflecting, but showing a window into a different room. And in that room, other people were there. Dozens. Standing close together in darkness, faces pale, eyes wide, all looking toward the mirror like they were watching us from the other side. Then it snapped back to the normal funhouse hallway mirror, reflecting us again like nothing had happened. Talia started crying. "Let's get out. Please!" We ran. We shoved through the foam doors and stumbled through the spinning tunnel too fast, almost falling. I didn't care. I just wanted out. When we burst through the clown mouth entrance into the night air, it felt like we'd escaped something alive. The girls clung to each other, shaking. I turned back to the entrance. The funhouse worker was standing there, but now he wasn't bored. He was smiling. And he said quietly, like he was telling a secret, "It shows you what you bring in." I stepped toward him. "What is that mirror?" He shrugged. "Some people see nothing." Why did I? He cut me off. "Don't go looking for it again." Then he tilted his head, eyes narrowing, and added, "Unless you want to make sure it happens." I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw myself tied to that chair. The next morning, I told myself it was a trick. A projection. Some kind of messed up carnival scare thing. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Because when I checked my wrist, where the funhouse stamp had been, the ink was gone. And in its place, faintly pressed into my skin, like a bruise, was the number 13. I scrubbed it. It didn't come off. It faded over the next few days, but the fear didn't. I tried to forget. Months passed. Then weird things started happening. Little things at first. I'd be alone in my apartment, and hear a faint sound like breathing from the hallway. I'd see my reflection in a dark TV screen, and for a second, it would look like my eyes were open wider than they should be, like I was startled. Once, I walked into my bathroom at night, and found the mirror fogged up like someone had just taken a hot shower. On the fog, someone had written with a finger. Soon. I moved out the next day. But the feeling followed. A year after the funhouse, I started getting messages from unknown numbers. No text. Just photos. Photos of places I didn't recognize. A chair in a dim room. A hanging bulb. A close-up of rope. The same rope from the mirror vision. I reported it to the police. They told me it was probably a prank. I changed my number. The photos kept coming. Sometimes they came through social media accounts that didn't have names. Blank profiles. No followers. One night, I received a video. It was shaky, like someone holding a phone in the dark. The camera panned over a room with peeling wallpaper. A single bulb swayed slightly overhead. Then the camera stopped on a chair. Empty. But the chair had fresh marks on the arms, like someone had been gripping it hard. The video ended with a quiet whisper, barely audible. Come see. I tried to convince myself it was random. Someone messing with me. But then Talia called me, voice tight. Do you remember the funhouse? She asked. My stomach dropped. Yeah. I had a dream, she whispered. About you. I couldn't speak. She continued. You were tied up. And you were looking at me. Like you wanted me to help you. But there was something behind me, telling me not to. My hands went numb. Talia, I said, don't think about it. I can't, she said, voice cracking. I keep seeing that mirror when I close my eyes. After that call, I realized it wasn't just me. The mirror had shown all of us something. Maybe mine was just worse. 2 months ago, I was driving home late from work. It was after midnight. The roads were empty. I stopped at a red light and glanced in my rearview mirror. My back seat was empty. Then I blinked. And in the mirror, someone was sitting back there. Tall. Thin. Face hidden in shadow. I turned around so fast my neck hurt. The back seat was empty. I faced forward again, heart hammering. The mirror showed my back seat empty. For a second, I wondered if I was losing my mind. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Just 2 words. Turn right. The light turned green. I sat frozen, gripping the wheel. My instincts screamed at me to drive straight home. But something else, something sick and curious, pulled at me. I turned right. I don't know why. I drove for 15 minutes, deeper into an industrial part of town I never go to. Warehouses. Closed shops. Dark streets. My phone buzzed again. Stop. I stopped. I looked around. There was nothing but an abandoned building with boarded windows. My phone buzzed again. Come in. I laughed, shaking. No. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't text. It was a photo. A photo of me in my car. Taken from outside. From the passenger side window. I stared at it, blood turning to ice. Then my passenger door handle lifted. Slowly. Like someone outside was testing it. But my doors were locked. The handle lifted again. Harder. I grabbed my phone, fumbling to call 911. But before I could, the interior light clicked on. Because the passenger door had opened. And something slid into the seat beside me. The air changed instantly, cold, damp, smelling like old fabric and rust. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I felt it turn its head toward me. I didn't look. I stared straight ahead at the windshield, eyes watering. A voice whispered near my ear. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just soft and certain. You already saw it. I shook my head, whispering, Please! It chuckled, this dry, tiny sound. Then it said, Run if you want. But it's yours. The car filled with the sound of slow breathing, like something sleeping beside me. Then the passenger seat went cold, colder than it should be, and the weight lifted. I snapped my head toward the seat. Empty. The door was closed. I didn't remember it closing. I drove home with both hands glued to the wheel, crying without meaning to. The next day, I went looking for the carnival. I needed to know if it was real. If the funhouse was still out there. I checked news posts, community pages, event calendars. Nothing. No sign it had ever existed. But that night, when I got home, my bathroom mirror was fogged again. I hadn't used hot water. On the fog was a new message. You can't outrun a reflection. And beneath that, one more line, written smaller. 13 days. I counted. 13 days from that night lands on a Friday. I don't know what's going to happen. But I know this. If you ever walk into a funhouse and see a mirror that looks too old to belong there, don't look into it. Because sometimes it doesn't show you what you look like. Sometimes it shows you what's already waiting for you. And once you see it, it doesn't stop trying to make it real. I used to do overnight security. It wasn't a glamorous job. Mostly it was sitting in a car, drinking gas station coffee, and watching empty places stay empty. But it paid well enough, and it fit my schedule. One night, my boss called me with a weird assignment. County fairgrounds, he said. They want a patrol overnight. Some traveling carnival setting up early. They're worried about theft. Carnival? I asked. Yeah, he said. Just show up at 11. Talk to the site manager. Easy money. I should have known, easy money is how you buy yourself a nightmare. I got there a little before 11. The fairgrounds were mostly dark. A few work lights glowed near the main gate. Trucks were parked in rows. You could see ride pieces stacked like giant bones, metal arms, seats, panels with painted faces. It was quiet except for distant clanking, like someone working farther inside. I parked near the entrance and checked in with the site manager. He was a heavy-set man in a reflective vest, holding a clipboard. He looked stressed and tired. Security? He asked. Yeah, I said. What do you want me? He pointed vaguely. Just do loops around the perimeter. If you see anyone you don't recognize, call me. I nodded. How many workers are here tonight? He hesitated. A few. That answer didn't match the amount of equipment on site. But I didn't push. I just started my patrol. I drove slowly along the gravel, headlights cutting through darkness. Most of the fairgrounds were empty. Just ride parts, trailer homes, and tents. Around 11:45, I noticed something. A cluster of workers near the center, standing around the half-built ride. But they weren't moving. Not like people working. They were standing still, facing inward, like they were listening to someone speak. I stopped my car and watched. None of them wore reflective vests. Their clothes were dark. Their faces were hard to see. Then, all at once, they turned their heads and looked at my car. Every single one. like they had practiced it. I felt a chill crawl up my arms. I rolled my window down a crack. Everything all right over there? No answer. They just stood there, staring. I rolled the window up. And as I drove away, I checked my mirror. They were still staring. Midnight hit. And the fairgrounds changed. I don't mean the lights turned on or music started. I mean the field changed. Like the air got heavier. Like the darkness got thicker. My radio started crackling, even though it was fine earlier. I tapped it. Static. I switched stations. Static. Then, through the static, I heard something that made my hands tighten on the wheel. A voice. Not clear enough to understand, but it sounded like a man speaking softly, and underneath it, faint laughter. I told myself it was interference. Then my headlights swept across one of the tents, and I saw movement inside. A shadow pressing against the canvas from the other side. Tall and thin. I stopped the car. The shadow moved closer to the tent wall, stretching it outward like someone pushing their body against it. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out, telling myself it was probably a worker. I approached the tent, heart pounding. Hey, I called. You good? The tent flap was tied shut. No response. I reached out and touched the canvas where the shadow had been. The canvas was cold. Not cool. Cold like ice. And the shadow on the other side. It moved to match my hand, like it was pressing back. I yanked my hand away and stepped back, breath fogging faintly in the air. Then I heard a whisper from behind me. After midnight. I spun around, flashlight up. No one. Just ride parts and trailers. I got back in my car fast and locked the doors, feeling stupid and scared at the same time. At 12:30, I finally saw the Carnival staff moving again. They weren't building rides. They were walking. In lines. Slow, calm, almost like a parade. They walked toward the main fairground where the rides would be, and as they moved, lights began turning on behind them, strings of bulbs flickering alive, one after another, like the carnival was waking up. But there were no customers. No music. No ticket booths open. Just lights in the dark, glowing over empty rides. It looked wrong. Like a party no one was invited to. I called the site manager. No answer. I tried again. Straight to voicemail. My radio crackled again, and this time the voice came through clearer. Staff only, it said. Then the laughter. I looked out my windshield and saw something that made my blood go cold. One of the rides, an unfinished spinning ride, was moving. Slowly turning, even though no power should have been running. No operator. No passengers. Just empty seats swinging in circles. I watched it spin and heard the faint creaking of metal. Then a new sound joined it. A low, steady breathing. I looked around my car, like it might be inside with me. It wasn't. It was outside. And it was coming from the direction of the spinning ride. I don't know why I did what I did next. Maybe curiosity. Maybe fear. Maybe some stupid need to understand. I got out of the car again and walked toward the ride. The lights overhead buzzed softly. Every step I took felt like I was walking deeper into a dream. As I got closer, I realized the ride wasn't just turning. It was turning perfectly. No wobbles. No uneven creaks. Like it was being operated with precision. Then I saw something sitting in one of the empty seats. A stuffed animal. A bear. gray button eyes, straight-stitched mouth. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like it hit the ground. The bear sat upright, facing me, like it had been placed there on purpose. As the ride turned, the bear rotated around, coming in and out of my flashlight beam like it was playing peekaboo. I stopped walking. The bear's head turned slightly. Not with the ride's motion. Independently. To keep looking at me. I whispered. No. Behind me, I heard footsteps on gravel. I spun around. The carnival staff, those dark-clothed workers, were standing in a line, watching me. Their faces were clearer now under the lights. Pale. Expressionless. Eyes too shiny. Not like people who worked hard outdoors. More like people who hadn't seen daylight in a long time. One of them stepped forward. A woman with hair pulled back tight. A smile too wide. My throat went dry. She spoke softly. Staff only, she said. I took a step back. I'm security. Her smile didn't change. You're here, she said, like that was all that mattered. Then she nodded toward the ride. Your shift starts now. I shook my head, backing away. No, it doesn't. The workers started walking toward me, slow and calm, like they knew I couldn't go anywhere. I turned and ran. I sprinted back toward my car, gravel sliding under my shoes. Behind me, I heard the ride speed up, metal groaning louder. And mixed into the creaking, I heard laughter, faint, childlike laughter, coming from the empty seats. I reached my car and yanked the door open. Inside, on my passenger seat, was a Carnival wristband. Not one I'd been given. A fresh one. Stamped with a number. 13. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my keys. I threw the wristband out the window and started the car. The engine hesitated, like it didn't want to start. Then it roared to life. I slammed the door and locked it, tires spitting gravel as I sped toward the gate. The gate was closed. It hadn't been earlier. I slammed on my brakes, headlights washing over the lock chain. I sat there, panting, staring at it like it was a wall. Then my radio crackled again. A voice whispered, "Employees exit through the back." I looked in my rearview mirror. The Carnival staff were walking toward my car in a line. Slow. Patient. Certain. And behind them, the spinning ride turned faster, empty seats swinging out. Except they weren't empty anymore. Every seat had something in it. Stuffed animals. Dozens of them. All upright. All facing forward. All with button eyes that seemed to shine in the dark. I didn't think. I just threw the car into reverse and floored it, backing away from the gate and turning hard, heading for the back exit the voice had mentioned. I didn't know where it was, but I saw a break in the fence line deeper in the grounds, a service opening. I drove toward it as fast as I could. The workers didn't run. They didn't need to. Because as I approached the service exit, the lights ahead flickered. And the opening didn't lead out. It led into darkness. A corridor between two trailers I hadn't noticed before, like a narrow alley. My headlights barely reached the end. And at the far end stood something tall. Thin. Still. Waiting. I slammed the brakes again, chest heaving. My radio crackled one last time, and the voice said softly, "Everyone wins." I sat frozen. Then the thing at the end of the corridor lifted its head. And I saw its face clearly for the first time. It wasn't a face. It was a stuffed bear head. gray fur, button eyes, and a stitched smile that had been pulled into a grin too wide to be cute. My body went cold all at once, like my blood had turned to ice. And in that moment I understood. Those prizes weren't toys. They were uniforms. I don't remember deciding to do it, but I swung the wheel and rammed the side fence instead. Metal shrieked. My car bounced hard, and pain shot up my arm. But the fence bent just enough for me to push through, scraping the car like nails on skin. I didn't stop until I was on the road, away from the lights, away from the fairgrounds. Only then did I pull over, shaking so badly I could barely breathe. I looked down at my wrist. In the faint light from the dashboard, I saw a dark bruise-like mark where my skin had been pressed. A number. 13. I scrubbed it until my skin burned. It stayed. The next day, I went to my boss and quit. No explanation. I avoided the fairgrounds. I avoided carnivals. I avoided anything that smelled like fried dough and cheap cotton candy. But 2 weeks later, a padded envelope arrived at my apartment. No return address. Inside was a single Carnival employee badge. The kind you clip to your shirt. It was old and stained. And the name printed on it was mine. Underneath my name was a job title. Night staff. And on the back, written in shaky handwriting, were 2 words. After midnight. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories. If you want to share your story with us, send us at belladarktales@gmail.com.